Well, I guess the thing that pisses me off about that is, like, I don't give a shit if they get it or not, but then they're gonna go spread it to other people because they're morons.
But then you should
So-
give a shit if they get it.
Well, just for the record, I am recording. So we'll have to talk a little bit longer so I can edit that part out. We'll start a little later, so...
Alright, guys.
Anyways, I've
Let me
been
give
dying
you-
for a whole week. So, Bobby, I'm one of those people you don't give a shit about having coronavirus. Ironic,
And
huh?
let's start.
And perfect.
Kevin, don't die.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, maybe we should just start so that you don't offend me any further. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the NRDWave podcast. And today, given the current climate, which feels like a total disaster, what we're all dealing with nowadays, with, bad economy, everyone's a shut-in now, which I'm kind of used to that.
Yeah,
but we're going to
my
talk...
normal life.
Exactly. Minor lifestyle change. But we thought it would be fun to talk about some disaster movies, some of the big ones out there that I don't think personally get a lot of respect that much nowadays, but let's give them some respect that they deserve. So we're going to rank our top 5, our personal favorites. Who wants to start first?
Well, I guess I'll introduce myself because you didn't want to do it for me.
Oh, that's right.
This once again.
First of all, let me cut you off. I'm Kevin. Just kidding.
As I was saying, I'm Bobby, the workhorse of the show, the one who gets no guff because I have all the right opinions.
Right.
But it's nice to be back. Oh no, it's gonna get away from me though, so it'll be fine.
Did you say it's nice to be back?
It's nice to be back.
Yeah, you're lucky you're back.
And it's me, Jay, aka the Jaggernaut, and I'm happy to be here to talk about disaster movies.
Did you just drop your Call of Duty handle?
I called my handle for everything.
Oh my
That's a
gosh,
PS4
shameless.
handle, not just a
That's
Call of
my
Duty
handle for everything.
Oh, whatever. All right, Jay, I think you're real passionate about this subject. How about you go first?
All right, so we're starting with number 5.
I would hope so.
Well, can I start with number 10? I have 10 of them.
No,
I'm just
Start
kidding.
with number 3, and we'll go
Number
in random
3,
order.
random order. Number 5, Dante's Peak. That's one of my top 5 disaster movies. Pierce Brosnan, Linda Hamilton, before she got really buff and skinny for
Terminator 2.
Judgment Day.
No, actually, this is after Terminator 2. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's after.
it's just, yeah. So that was one of my favorites growing up. I think it was just an amazing experience to see a volcano blow up and being chased by pyroclastic flow.
Like
Who
Chris
doesn't
Pratt
Who
in
doesn't
Jurassic
love
World?
that? Oh yeah,
But this was
he's
accurate.
one of the
This one was
fastest
accurate.
runners
Did Pierce Brosnan-
from-
Did Pierce Brosnan get shot with a tranquilizer dart?
And somehow,
At
And then
some,
wake
at some
up minutes
point, I
later?
believe so. Yeah.
All right, that's
yeah,
a good
Pierce
choice.
Brosnan is a geologist for the USGS, and then he goes to a sleepy little town in Washington to warn them to investigate a mountain that's going to blow up or supposedly blow up. No one believes him, so everyone stays in the town. And then guess what happens? It blows up,
What?
and the town's ruined. Yeah,
Crazy
Wow.
talk.
spoilers.
I think
Let's give some spoilers for this 1997 movie.
It looked amazing, honestly. Like for that era, it just you felt like it was an actual eruption.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the one thing I don't like about it is the stupid grandma living up on the mountain, being stubborn, and they go back to risk their life to save her, and she dies anyway.
I do have some thoughts on that because we actually finally have something in common. I have Dante's Peak number 5.
All right.
It's my number 5 as
Dang.
well. Actually, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when the grandma sacrifices herself to get them because the boat, like they're in a lake and the lava has started coming into the lake, and so their boat is melting.
It was
and
acid. The lake turned into acid.
Oh, that's
yeah.
right. Yeah, it turned into acid. So they think that they're not going to make it because they're too far away from the dock. She gets out and pushes them to the edge and obviously dies, sacrificing herself. But I thought that was actually one of the more, probably the most touching scene in the movie.
so. At what point in this movie was the floor lava?
Probably like an hour in.
An
I would
hour
say.
in before it was lava.
Dang, that's a
They had to jump on
intense
the
game.
black squares. Jump on the black
Yeah,
squares
you
at
had
the
to stay on
grocery
all the
store.
furniture.
You know, I was actually thinking, like you were mentioning, like the plot a little bit ago, like, you know, like the sleepy little town that doesn't believe the geologist, the main character. It has a very Jaws vibe to it. You know, like they don't want to close down the town and evacuate. They need the revenue from the people, and it feels like a more modern day Jaws movie.
I think that's a
feels like
perfect segue
real
into
life.
I think that's a perfect segue into my movie because, and not to spoil anything, but it's not Jaws. It's a Day After Tomorrow, which has a very similar premise where there's a scientist who knows that something's wrong. Nobody believes him, and then he's got to basically take matters into his own hands to save his family. So it's kind of funny how these two movies kind of have that similar beginning premise where there's like a smart scientist who nobody believes, which I think is probably a trend in a lot of these movies.
He wasn't that smart because his timing was completely off.
Well, yeah, it was a lot more accelerated than he originally
forgot
thought.
to carry a 1, I think.
Yeah. But hey, you gotta create some sort of urgency in a magma speed event.
Hey, sometimes
Things
magma
go
is
out the window.
really fast. I think when it's magma, it's pretty slow. When it's lava, it's fast.
Exactly.
I don't think that's how it works.
I don't know.
I'm
That's where
gonna
Benny's
agree with
Vandals
Jay.
pulls up.
He sounded like he knew what he was talking about.
Magma is just
okay?
lava under the earth. Nothing to do with clock speeds.
Magma.
Wait a minute. How quick is this magma moving? Oh shit, 5 miles an hour? That's fucking lava.
This is some like Scary Movie 3 stuff right here.
There's so many scientists rolling over in their graves right now. Why are they dead?
Scientists don't know.
Why are they
They're
dead?
dead because nobody listened to them.
Because
That's
the
why.
Day After Tomorrow.
They lived above the line. They lived above the center of the United States.
Yeah, I think that this movie, Day After Tomorrow, is Roland Emmerich's last good movie that he's made so far, or to this point.
2012 came out like 7 years later.
I rest my case. So
all he does is disaster.
Yeah, I think so.
That's kind of his shtick. But yeah, I think it's one of the good ones. I think Jake Gyllenhaal does a good performance. I think this is Dennis Quaid's last good role too. I don't remember anything he's been in so far that's been that good, or at least
I
critically.
love Flight of the Phoenix. Flight of the Phoenix was good. I don't know if that came before or after though.
Well, that's good you mentioned it. And then Emmy Rossum is in it too. She's pretty good. I just think it's a cool story, but the most interesting thing I think is the visuals, where you have like where the bay that the Statue of Liberty's in is all frozen and everything's like just super icy and stuff, and that kind of, I like that kind of imagery in a lot of these movies.
There's a lot of cool set pieces in in your movie, Kevin.
Yeah,
it has the the number one thing happen in it that most disaster movies is a giant wave.
yeah. Well, 2012 has that too, so I think Roland Emmerich just
a
loves
lot
that
of movies
stuff.
have that.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite things
Deep
about
Impact.
that movie. Yeah, well, that too. Yeah. Well, hey, well,
We'll get there.
one of my favorite things about that movie is when they're explaining the super cyclones and how it sucks all the super cold air from the upper atmosphere down, and they're like trying to evacuate the Queen in London, and it freezes the gas, it freezes the fuel in the
Everything just
helicopters.
instantly freezes
yeah,
and all that.
everything just instantly freezes, like a just a ice cold blower just going over the earth and just instant freezing everything.
Yeah. It's cool when that hits the library that Jake Gyllenhaal and Emmy Rossum are hiding out in, because it's like that's the only thing that keeps them warm, the shelter, when that whole like cyclone is going over. Are they in DC or New York? I can't remember. But
I think they're in New York.
They're in New York. Yeah, they're at the library. But apparently all you have to do is shut the door and then it stops it.
yeah, because
How else do you stop the cold?
wood is a good neutralizer for a lot of things.
Shut the door.
So yeah, I really dig that movie. It doesn't have the greatest story, but it's got, like Bobby said, it's got a lot of good set pieces.
It's visually pleasing.
Yeah,
It very much is.
Absolutely. Well, let's get on to our number 4, which I coincidentally wrote as 3 on my list for some reason. I
Fun
had 2
fact.
number 2s.
We are going to do them out of order.
Yep. All right, go ahead, Bobby. What's your number 4?
All right, my number 4. I went with I went with actually a comedy here, which I know there's probably a couple of choices, but a lot of them are like cheesy ones from the 70s. I went with This Is the End. I think it was 2013 or so. It's one of the better like Seth Rogen like buddy comedy movies. You know, it's obviously not super bad, but it's still like one of the better ones.
It's super good.
It is.
No way
It
that
is
movie's
super
7
good.
years old already, though.
Maybe it's 2016. I was thinking 2013, but either way, it's been a few years. But I think it's great because it's all these actors playing themselves and playing caricatures of themselves. Well, possibly, who knows? But like definitely exaggerated. Or at least that's what they want you to
I
think.
was gonna say
That's
Michael Cera.
in real life.
It's real life accuracy.
That's definitely one of the better parts when he's yelling about who's got my cell phone, and the pole just comes through and impales him, and then he finds it in his pocket. He's like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed."
Oh man, I had it the whole time. Yeah.
But this movie, it's so funny. I think it's one of the last good comedies that we've seen in a while. I think obviously the chemistry between all these guys who are real life friends like really shines through. Danny McBride I think he's the standout of this movie for me. Like every scene he's in is just gold. Like I know like when some of the characters are like talking, I think it's Jay Baruchel and Craig Robinson, like they're just talking about like God and stuff, and you see him in the background and he just says, "I hear everything," just really
Classic.
cryptically, and it's just a fun movie, and like obviously like a bunch of crazy stuff happens, but it's just a really fun watch throughout.
Well, I think we have another coincidence here because my number 4 is also This Is the End.
Oh yeah,
I bet you didn't expect that, did you, Jay? You
I
jerk.
did not,
yeah,
actually.
Jay.
Freaking jerk! I knew you were
Jerk
trying
because
against
I
us
didn't
this whole time. I knew it.
You know me.
Yeah, but I freaking love this movie. Like you said, this is one of the last like great comedies that came out in theaters that I've seen in theaters. I mean, there's been a couple. We've talked about it on one of our earlier episodes. Like Game Night is okay. Spy was pretty good, but this movie is just freaking hilarious, and I love the concept of it where they are playing themselves, obviously a caricature of themselves. But Danny McBride, like holy crap, he's freaking hilarious when he shows up.
So good.
Because I had no clue he was even in the movie, and then he like wakes up out of the bathtub. And
Yeah,
stuff, you're
the
like,
bathtub.
"Oh,
Like he was at
dang."
the party the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody saw him the whole time, and like you said,
He
Michael
wasn't
Cera,
invited.
Tons of cameos: Kevin Hart, Aziz Ansari,
I tried to save Aziz.
Emma Watson. It's just a really great cast, and they look like they're having a great time doing it. Standout moment for me is when they're doing Pineapple Express 2, when they remake the movie because they're so bored. So they're like, let's write
That was
Pineapple
epic.
Express 2. So good.
And
Jay
Danny
Baruchel-
McBride's character is back somehow.
Yeah, yeah. Jay
Still got the
Baruchel,
neck brace on.
I like him in everything. He's kind of like an everyman. He's really identifiable. You can kind of put yourself in his shoes. And Seth Rogen, I think, is not as annoying as he usually is. So, yeah, it's a great movie. Love it.
It's a good choice. Very good choice.
What do you have it for, Jay?
All right, number 4 for me is Armageddon. This one is just a much more action-packed, I guess, disaster movie. It's almost like action adventure disaster kind of cross genre thing. Bruce Willis, the whole cast is just amazing. You know, Bruce Willis. You have Steve Buscemi. You know, Liv Tyler. Ben Affleck. Batfleck. Yeah, before he was
Jay,
Batfleck.
would you say that this is an ensemble cast movie?
This is an ensemble cast. Well.
Oh.
So the thing about this movie is, you know, it's just got so many cool moments in it. You know, everyone's, you know, the actors are amazing. Steve Buscemi, when he's got space dementia up on the asteroid and he's writing the nuclear bomb, whatever it is, like
that might be one of my favorite things created for a movie is space dementia. And William Fisher's character says it with such like that he knows what it is. Like, oh no, he's got space dementia.
He says that. He's like, no, he doesn't say that. He's like, he's got space dementia.
It's like such a fact.
So matter, it's so matter of fact.
He just knows.
Yeah.
He's like, I've seen this before. My grandma had it. Yeah.
But then also the movie hits you like right in the feels too, you know, with Bruce Willis giving up his life and, you know, tricking Ben Affleck and, you know, taking over his position of, you know, giving up and sacrifice for, you know, him and the world, you know.
That wasn't. I never expected that out of a movie like this because like there's a lot of comic elements to this movie, and then finally like it actually has like some real stuff hitting you hard, and like it got me tearing up. I don't know about you.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, I cried at that scene. Honestly,
I didn't cry at all.
But
Well,
Never-
Kevin,
never
that makes sense because you cried at like 2 movies because you're a robot.
Yeah, but those 2 movies were actually emotional. Okay,
Which ones are they again?
there was Fox and the Hound and La La Land, and that was it.
Wait. I thought you cried after watching The Last Jedi because it was such a piece of garbage.
Yeah, that was after, not during the movie. So after, when I went to the car, I cried in my car for about 25 minutes or so, because that movie killed the franchise. There's no.
I went to an abandoned warehouse and punched Dance till I was.
You should have punched Dance in the woods and then fallen down a cliff
down the hill.
Oh man, that's some good stuff.
What's next? Number 3. Bob,
Number
you
3.
Want to take it away?
Oh no, Jay. What do you got? I think you had something good, right?
Okay, I got number 3 here for you guys. It's Twister, early 90s.
Good choice.
That's a good one. You're going really 90s in this, and I like that.
Well, I mean, that's when
he was
a
in
lot
his
of
20s, you know?
Oh, not even close.
Hashtag old joke.
Hashtag not funny.
Yeah, not even close. He was in his 30s, Kevin. Jeez.
Hashtag got him.
Hashtag uninvited to Christmas.
Aw. When was I invited in the first place?
You're invited. You're always invited.
Yeah, damn straight.
Twister. For then, it's when CGI was, just in its prime. Not its prime, its infancy, really, kind of. But it still looked pretty amazing to see, a big tornado up on the screen. Obviously, this movie's not based in science or actual physics. But, the story was still pretty cool. And people give me guff about it all the time when I bring up that I
get that guff.
No, that I want to see a tornado from afar, not up close. And experience, just seeing a tornado and the awe and the majesty of nature, and they also, same
impressive.
with, I want to go to a hurricane party, be there, not wishing any damage or injury upon anybody, But
well, it's funny you mentioned that. That's why I have Earthquake as my number 3. No, just kidding.
I
just love earthquakes.
Back to my teens.
Exactly. I wanted to put a little nostalgia in there for you, Jay.
Remember when Charlton Heston was in his prime?
Twister, I remember as a kid, really freaking me out. It gave me some anxiety, especially when they use a belt and tie it to that pipe in order to not fly away.
I gotta say, that has no basis in reality at all.
It's so bad in reality, but that was cool to watch.
The worst part being when that house, a fully built house, just rolls onto the road and they drive through it. Remember that part?
Oh yeah, that's the upstairs. I think someone's in the house. They're like, "Hey, on the toilet." Hey!
Just covered in
Cleveland's in the bathtub. Oh no.
That's actually that's actually a pretty good cast too. It's got Bill Paxton as the lead. It's got Helen Hunt as the main love interest. It's got another. It's got what's his name? Dusty. I can't remember his name.
Oh wow, we should know this name.
Oh, he's from the Sharding guy.
Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah,
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Rest in peace. Yeah. Also, man,
he was really good in that role too.
This movie
was
just
a fun.
This movie was a curse, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
Apparently,
well,
killed Helen Hunt's career.
I mean, the real curse is that he's known as the guy who sharded.
No, I think
curse or
Helen Hunt went on to be in As Good as It Gets, which was almost Oscar winning, wasn't it? Didn't it win something?
Yeah, she had a successful TV show, Mad About You.
Yeah, that was before all of this.
Paul Reiser.
It came back. It's on some obscure I think it's on
Spectrum.
Time Warner channel. Yeah. Spectrum.
Yeah. Like I said, this movie gave me anxiety as a kid. I remember my friend loved it, and I would go over and spend the night at his house, and he'd be like, "Let's watch Twister," and I was like, "No," because it freaked me out. I didn't want to watch it, but it's a really good movie. I mean, it's stupid, but it's good. One of the funny things in the movie is that the dude, the rival storm chaser, the way that he dies is so unneedlessly gruesome. He's just this guy.
It's like Zara. It's like Zara in
in Jurassic World.
Jurassic World. It's just so needlessly mean. He wasn't
doing his job.
A dickhead. He was just a rival.
Competitive. Yeah, and he just gets destroyed by an I-beam or whatever. Crazy.
It was a radio tower. It went right through the windshield.
Oh yeah. They're like,
do you think he got the message? Yeah.
It was received.
And they didn't miss him at all. They're like, oh cool, now we have a monopoly.
It was Carrie Ells.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Princess Bride.
Such a weird role for him to play. Because again, he wasn't he was super unlikable, but he wasn't the hero, so that's kind of interesting.
He plays douchey well though.
He plays it very well. It's because he's British.
Yeah, it's true. What did you have number 3, Kevin?
My number 3, which I think Bobby's going to give me guff, just because of our pre-show meeting. I have Titanic at number 3.
Oh snap!
He made fun of it in the group chat.
I sure did.
Yeah, this is for sure a disaster movie, and it's a very complex one. And visually stunning. The technology that went into making this movie is just insane. Yeah. It was so freaking...
James Cameron always ups the bar on his movies. When he's like, especially he doesn't do movies for such a long time, and then when he does one, he just raises the bar again and again.
Yeah, and this one actually, contrary to like his newest project, which notable one was Avatar. This one actually has a good story, I think, and the love story is actually powerful and believable. I think that adds an element. And there's this slow burn because you start to care about the characters, and then when they all start dying, you're like, oh crap, what's gonna happen? But being that this is a disaster movie episode of NRDWave, the scenes where the boat is sinking they're absolutely spectacular. It looks straight up real, and I remember as a kid, because this came out in like 98, 97.
Yeah, something like that.
So when I first watched it, I didn't really care about it too much in terms of what a movie story was. Didn't really matter to me. And I remember just watching the whole thing and just waiting for the end of the movie, and just
the end was what we were looking for.
Yeah, just mind blown. So many so much notable imagery there, like people falling off and hitting the propeller, and then like
just banging off and doing flips.
Yeah, and
just
like
bing,
sliding
bing,
off. Like, it looks
weird,
absolutely real, and this movie is one of those disaster movies where there's actual emotion in it, and it's not just like a big CGI fest. It's a great movie, and it's one of the highest grossing movies for a reason. It's fantastic. Yeah.
And I think what it also has for it too is that it's an actual event.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's like it has those
quote unquote based off a true story.
The story is not.
It's actually the Britannia that sank. The Titanic is still floating around there somewhere.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that's true.
So do some research on that next time.
Makes sense.
It's right next to the JFK files, and
and the moon landings are fake.
Yeah, and DARPA, not DARPA. HARP. Sorry,
HARP.
DARPA's real.
Is the Loch Ness monster guarding it? Is that who's the
Bobby? Nobody believes in silly stories like that.
Yeah, Bobby. Come
sorry.
on.
Is it Bigfoot?
It's Bigfoot. He's the one. He
was the captain.
He's the file cabinet attendant.
He was on the iceberg. And he's like,
you have to check in with him. You're like, oh, can I get the Britannia files? He's like, oh, okay. All right, Bobby. What do you got three?
This old time spectacles.
Yeah, he's got the little tiny circle ones.
Yeah,
like half an inch.
Just on the end of his nose, he's looking down.
It takes him like a little while to read. He's like, okay, I see it now.
He's like, it took me forever to learn to read.
Just to do a little bit more about Titanic. It's funny. As a kid, I didn't care about the actual story. I actually didn't like Leonardo DiCaprio as a kid, but as I've gotten older, I've really appreciated his acting and how good he actually is at what he does. And like the last time I watched it a couple of years ago, I was like, damn, this movie is actually a really good watch. It's just super long. It's 3 hours long, but really good stuff.
I think that's necessary to really develop those bonds with the characters. So because a lot of these movies, and especially with horror movies too, their weakness is that you don't really give a crap about the people that are dying. So that just adds that extra facet. And Billy Zane.
Yeah, I was going to mention Billy Zane just now. He's a cool dude.
He is a cool dude. It's a walk off.
Stay out of this, Billy Zane.
All right, Bobby,
so for my number 3, it kind of mixes genres. So I don't know if you're gonna give me some guff for this one, but I picked Shaun of the Dead. It is a zombie movie, but it is also a disaster movie. You have the main character. It's an Edgar Wright movie, who is a phenomenal director. You have Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, who do wonderful work together. Simon Pegg is Shaun of the Dead. He's like I think he's a mid to late 20s. He's just like a slacker. It just reminds me of like any one of us from our mid to late 20s. Jay, like 40 years ago.
How fucking dare you, Bobby? I'm not a slacker.
Wow, I get older and older.
Did I not get out of bed today? Yes.
Did you do anything of note? No.
I mean, I worked, but just from bed.
It's funny just because like he's got a girlfriend, but like he's such a slacker that like the relationship's going nowhere. He's got a best friend that's an even bigger slacker. I don't even think he has a job, and it's just like throughout the movie, like he's dealing with the zombies and everything, but he's also dealing with like like needing to change his life. Like it seems like every character in the movie, like all the main characters that he deals with, teach him some kind of life lesson. Like he loves his mom and he hates his stepdad. Then like he has an encounter with his stepdad, Bill Nighy, great actor, great British actor, who ends up dying. But then like he has like a really good heart to heart with him that makes him realize that he wasn't a bad guy and he was always looking out for him. Yeah. And just like every encounter throughout the movie just teaches him like how he had a different take on things before, and now he kind of realizes what was actually happening, and it kind of just makes him change by the end of the movie. And it's just a fun movie. Like it's funny. It's the first of the Cornetto trilogy from Edgar Wright. It's Shaun of the Dead, it's Hot Fuzz, and then was the end
At World's End.
At World's End, yeah.
Oh.
Which was God.
No, it wasn't that, surprisingly. But then, if like just looking at the best scene of the movie, it's when they go to the Winchester, the bar, and then they start playing "Don't Stop Me Now" in the jukebox and just start killing zombie after zombie, and it's one of the most fun scenes in a movie I've seen in the last 15 years.
What makes that scene so fun is that everything they're doing is to the beat of "Don't Stop Me Now."
Yeah, which is an Edgar Wright staple.
Baby Driver.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like
exactly. It's so good, and it's like there's a lot of stuff I could even go into it. There's just so much stuff about the movie that like predicts what's going to happen, like beat for beat. There's a scene where his best friend is talking about like the plots of the movie going forward, and like all that stuff ends up happening. Yeah. Like he's talking about like going to the bar, taking some shots, just like doing like stuff like that to get over the breakup with his girlfriend, and all that stuff happens later with almost the same wordage. It's just clever as hell.
I love when they run into their doppelgangers,
right?
Yeah.
That's so good. What'd you say, Kevin?
I was just saying, but like that scene had like different inclination to the like different tone with how they're saying stuff, so it totally changes the meaning, right?
Absolutely. Hot Fuzz does the same exact thing, and it's brilliant. Like it like you just see like there's a lot of like it is like dark because like you have most of their friends dying, like friends and family that are in the movie dying, but it's also like you have these very funny actors like bringing levity to the situation. It's just a really good watch.
Yeah. I love the scene where they're leaving the pub the first time before you see their first zombie, first or second zombie, because you're not sure if the ex-porn star is a zombie yet.
Right.
Was she? But then, they hear him moaning, and they do it to White Lines. White lines blow away. And then yeah.
And actually, just another really fun scene is like when they first realize that they're zombies and they start throwing the records at them.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you can't do that one. Throw this one.
Not Sade. Do Dire Straits. No, not Dire Straits.
That's a really
limited press.
Yeah, it's my favorite of the Edgar Wright trilogy. Can't remember what you called it.
It's called the Cornetto trilogy. It's because it's like an ice cream in the movies. It's so funny.
The shop.
It's like the red apple cigarettes in Tarantino movies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, cool. What do you have at 3J?
I did 3 already.
Okay,
we're on to number 2.
Number 2?
I'm gonna have to start writing your guys' choices down because I don't really, I'm not paying attention because I don't care that much.
I think it's getting old now too.
A couple episodes ago, I realized I need to keep track.
This is a retirement. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, you're right. Because we're never going back to work. Want me to start with number 2? All right.
Yeah, you do it.
With this one, with number 2, I had the choice of 2 movies that were very similar, but they were in a sort of a different genre. I think that supersedes this a little bit, but I just had to have it in this movie. The one that I didn't end up choosing was Godzilla, so I ended up going with Cloverfield. Cloverfield it has a more disaster movie feel because at least in modern Godzilla movies, he's the hero, so it doesn't feel like humanity is really ever in danger because he's always saving the day, even if there's a ton of destruction. But Cloverfield very much feels like the world is ending, and there's a monster who's just tearing up everything and it's unstoppable. This movie, I did a deep dive into the advertising because before it came out, the trailer for it showed the Statue of Liberty's head being torn off, thrown down a street, and you see it land, and it's all done on like a hand cam. And the people were like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" And then there was no title for the movie. It just said 1/1808. That was the date it was going to be released.
Yep.
So
Dude, that was cool.
I remember looking it up with my friend Chris. We did all this backstory investigation on all these like secret websites that weren't advertised as like, "Hey, this movie's coming out." It was all just like super like guerrilla advertising. We
really
freaking
cool.
loved it.
There's a thing called like Slusho Mix, I think, that was like part of the advertising for it. Which, by the way, is in another JJ movie. They reference it in Star Trek, the first one,
Right.
at the bar scene, which I thought was funny.
Yep. But yeah, this movie is really cool because it's kind of like, the Blair Witch Project where it does the found footage thing, but it combines that with also another character that I love, like I said, Godzilla, and I just love monster movies in general. So I thought this was vomit inducing if you have any kind of motion sickness problems.
Yeah, that handy cam is rough sometimes.
Yeah, I don't have that issue, so I just freaking love this movie. But
same.
I understand the complaints. But I thought T.J. Miller was good in it. He was a good comic relief, and it was just super interesting world that J.J. Abrams had built. I wish that we would have gotten like a true sequel to it. Maybe we will someday. But I love it, and the monster itself is really really interesting too. I like that it looks nothing like anything else. So super interesting design, and I love that you barely get to see it because sometimes that mystification of something just makes it way more interesting.
Makes it scary too.
The fear of the unknown. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I have this one so high on my list. I think it might not be the best movie of what we talked about. I mean, obviously it's not better than Titanic, but it's just one of those movies that I have so much enjoyment for. It checks all my boxes.
Yeah.
Well, Oh, sorry. Oh, so it's funny that you brought up Cloverfield too, because I have Cloverfield in the second spot as well. I think like I was never a huge Godzilla fan, but I could always appreciate it for what it was. And then we, like you said, we get this Godzilla style movie where instead of as the hero, like we had kind of seen him from like the newer Japanese movies, he's the villain, or it's the villain, and it is nothing that we'd ever really seen before, like the style of monster. I think from what I saw, what I remember, I think the Mutos from the new Godzilla, the 2014 version, are kind of sort of based off that. Like I could be wrong in that, but from my memory, they kind of look similar.
They look a
similar
little
in
similar,
anatomy,
but
yeah.
If you saw like an actual rendering of both of them, you'd be like, "Oh, okay, it's not like."
Yeah, if you saw Clover and a Muto,
they both have really long forearms, front arms that bend at a weird angle. Like they're
that's
knees.
kind of the thing that gives that to me, that thought to me.
But the heads are different. You've got like pincers like a beetle on the Muto, but then like the Cloverfield one has more like jaws. It has actual like teeth.
Right. And it's got like those like the things on the side of the face that they expand. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
like
you call
the
that.
bulge, almost. Yeah, the
like
sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. But yeah, like this movie, like you have T.J. Miller. This is the first time I ever saw him. I feel like this is probably his breakout role, and he brought a lot of comedic relief to this movie. Like this should be like purely like a horror movie, but he brought a lot of laughs to it, which I was not expecting.
It brings levity, like what we're doing in this disaster situation.
Oh yeah,
we're doing a service. We are as good as T.J. Miller before
pre craziness.
Yeah. You guys keep forgetting Lizzie Kaplan was her first appearance. I think the first time I see her too.
I was gonna say she's the only other one who I've really seen in much else. Like otherwise, it's mostly like unknown actors or like actors who never hit the big time, which I think is a really good choice for a movie like this.
Odette,
like because anybody could die. Who?
Odette Yesman was in a movie.
I wish I could tell you who that was.
It's the main character's
this
girlfriend.
Movie had. We talked about the handycam and how like sometimes it's a struggle to watch, but I think that's what gives this movie its feel. The best part of feeling like you're
unique.
actually. You're experiencing the disaster with these people. You're not
exactly.
You're not from a perspective of the audience. You're immersed in it.
If it was filmed like a traditional movie,
dread.
Yeah. If it was filmed like a traditional movie, it wouldn't have been as good.
It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
No.
It would just.
And then also. So this movie's a part of it. I don't know. I guess a trilogy. I don't know. Because you get the Cloverfield Paradox, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you get
10 Cloverfield
Lane.
Yeah.
Which is actually you're still the whole thing's still happening in 10 Cloverfield Lane, but I'm still not sure. I can't figure out Cloverfield Paradox. Is that the catalyst that started this whole thing?
Yeah.
Is it a prequel? I mean, it's JJ's very very confusing.
Well, so
you know,
10 Cloverfield Lane and Cloverfield Paradox weren't written as Cloverfield movies. They were other movies that were being produced by Bad Robot, which is JJ's production company. And he basically said, well, I don't know who made the decision actually, but that company basically said, hey, we should put this in the Cloverfield universe, slap Cloverfield on it, and then that's that. And then they did some like little rewrites to connect it. So basically what the Cloverfield Paradox does is it establishes that there's multiple universes, there's multiple dimensions that are slamming into each other basically, and that's what manifests the Cloverfield monster into into the Cloverfield story, the first movie.
It crashed into the ocean at the very end of the movie, right? Like it wasn't, or was it? Because I've heard two things: that or a satellite crashes and it wakes it up at the bottom of the ocean.
Nobody knows for sure, but that's essentially what happened. That's what people think, is that when the dimensions change or like smash into each other, and then like the Cloverfield paradox is really weird, but I actually really like it. So that threw that monster into our universe, but it was still asleep on the the bottom of the ocean. The satellite did wake it up, but if the Cloverfield paradox ever happened, that wouldn't have happened.
Oh, okay.
So
interesting. Okay,
but yeah, it's
very good movie. I love watching this movie. It's a fun disaster, or like it's hard to say fun with a disaster movie, but they do make it. TJ Miller makes it fun,
With the exception of Star Wars, this movie is the movie that I did the most research on, and it hadn't even come out yet. That's how like obsessed me and my friend were with this. So tons of nostalgia on this one. I love it.
Right. All right, Jay, what do you got number 2?
Number 2 is The Impossible, based on the tidal wave in Southeast Asia that happened several years ago, based on a real event, and it's got about a family. It's based on true events that happened. A family that is there vacationing, and I think is it Thailand or Indonesia, and the earthquake happens, and then the tidal waves come, and they're separated, and it's just about them trying to find each other again and get back together. And amazingly, everyone in the family survives and just goes through their struggle of everything they went through, and just surviving this disaster. And the waves, everything, and the special effects in this are amazing, and the story is just heart-wrenching too at the same time. And it ends in a good note, but obviously you have the tragedy of thousands of people losing their lives in that actual event. And it's the first time we see Tom Holland too. So.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah, that's his first. Or I don't know if it's his first movie, but it's his first. I guess his breakout role.
Oh, so this movie, when I was doing research for this, I saw on a lot of like top 10 lists, but I'd never even heard of it. So I'm gonna have to check it out because it sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, I think that sounds really interesting because like a true real life event like that really brings the heaviness to it. It really brings like emotion into it, which I think really helps for a movie like this.
Yeah. Well, it's just the struggle of the family, It's just like, well, what if that was my family too? It's like it pulls you into it, and it's super emotional, but at the same time, you're super grateful at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I have to check that one out. Because it didn't really. When I had read about it, I didn't really think about it in terms of a disaster movie, because it doesn't have like a world scale. But then I put Titanic on my list, so what do I know?
Nothing.
That was one of the questions I had you guys earlier. Are we doing world scale or isolated events? Yeah. I mean, they both work. So
I think both
generally.
Work just fine.
I think that was generally the intent of this, and I think we mostly stuck to that.
Honestly, when we first brought it up, I was thinking only world scale. I didn't even think of isolated events until like I started, talking to you guys, and you're bringing up things. I'm like, oh, yeah, this works too. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, Titanic is the only one that I have on the list that isn't world scale, but
there's a couple that I considered. There's a couple that I considered that were like just like a small group of people or a smallish group of people, but I ended up not putting it on my list. I could go over that soon, but if we're on to number 1, I've got a movie that Jay's already brought up here. I've got Armageddon. I know, Kevin, you have a strong dislike of a few Michael Bay and Michael Bay-like movies. I'm talking about Con Air in this one because that should have been a Michael Bay movie. Somehow it wasn't. I don't know.
The only reason I should have been a Michael Bay movie is because that one dude is in both.
Steve Buscemi? That's the only reason?
No. Not Armageddon. What was I thinking of? The bald guy. Dang it. Trying to find his name.
In
Con Air. Cyrus the Virus.
Malkovich.
Yeah, John Malkovich.
John Malkovich.
He's in Transformers 3. There's the Michael Bay connection.
Fair enough.
All right,
That's the only reason why.
That rolled off the tongue. Yeah, that's the only reason why.
Absolutely.
In terms of general tone and style, no. But John Malkovich, absolutely.
John Malkovich pulls it all together.
Sure does.
So this movie, it's an ensemble movie, which is one of my favorite things. I love Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 11 style movies. You got Ocean's 12 is bad. Ocean's 13 is good. Yeah. So we got that going for it.
Agreed.
I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you. This one's like it's got so many. It's got Bruce Willis. It's got Billy Bob Thornton. Billy Bob Thornton, by the way, in this movie is I don't know about incredible, but he's very, very good. I think he pulls off his character incredibly well. You've got Ben Affleck, who I think was good in it. You've got Liv Tyler, who did a serviceable job. But then you've got like all like the side characters, like Will Patton, Steve Buscemi, then Owen Wilson, like we talked about. My favorite character in the entire movie, though, is Peter. It's Peter Stormare, who plays the Russian guy in like half the movies.
Yeah, he's great. You want to be a hero?
Don't do it. I'll kill her.
That's the wrong one.
As soon as they meet him on the Russian space station, like every scene with him going forward is gold. He is just like the craziest character. He's like beating the system that doesn't work in the space station with a wrench, and suddenly it just works. Like he's just beating the shit of it, like yelling at it, and it just starts working because I think it's afraid of him.
Yeah.
You just have so many good scenes with him, and the chemistry between a lot of these actors is what does it for me. I think they work really well together. They seem like they're having fun. Like going back to This Is the End, I think chemistry is a very important factor in movies. If you've got bad chemistry, let's say like the Star Wars prequels, it's going to make the movie suffer. So I think the chemistry between all these characters is really good. Bruce Willis is actually trying. That's one of the biggest keys of this movie. Yeah, he wasn't on vacation yet. I just think...
That's a deep cut.
We forget Michael Clark Duncan was in this movie too, and I think he's one of the most lovable actors I think in the last 20 years.
He's so great. Yeah, man, he's like a big teddy bear. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like
his name was Bear, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Bear.
Yeah.
It's just like I think there's like 10 characters in this movie who are like actually interesting. Obviously Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck are probably like the main two leads, but you've got a lot of really interesting characters. The story is like, we talked about it earlier. It makes no sense to train drillers to be astronauts, but the scenes where they are training, like they're just, it's like, imagine if we were trained to be astronauts. We're a bunch of idiots and we don't know what we're doing. Yeah, we're just we're having fun.
I think what works for this movie is it's a bunch of blue collar people, blue collar men, everyday guys, Joes, doing, digging ditch diggers, and they save the world.
Exactly. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, but when you watch it, I have fun. Like Kevin, I think you need to watch it again. Maybe just have a couple of drinks for it, and then you'll have a good time.
Full of dread right now, just thinking about it. Just kidding. All right, Jay, what's your number one?
My number one is it's another asteroid movie. It's the more serious, dramatic one. It's Deep Impact.
Oh,
yeah. So I mean, I think this is a great all-around movie. It's it just. You had a lot of multiple stories. You had the crew on the spaceship, and you're dealing with them and their families, and you got Tia Leone down on Earth, and she's dealing with her stuff, and then she finds out this I guess I don't remember exactly how she found it out. It was a secret coded word is Ellie, and it stands for extinction level event, and then she just digs deeper. She's an investigative reporter, and they find out that this giant asteroid is heading towards Earth. And then it's actually, I think was it 2 asteroids the whole time, or I think it was 1 big one and 1 small one, and then,
I don't know.
But then you get the total destruction of Paris, which and one of the first asteroids hits or a segment of it, and I just remember it just looked amazing. I just remember you get this gargoyle, I don't know where it was, it's on Notre Dame or something like that, and you just see it up the centers, I think probably like the Eiffel Tower or something like that, and you just see this shockwave come, and the crater created on the devastation.
Say creator.
Are you talking about God?
The creator.
Yeah. When God said, "I hate Paris," and he smashed it. And then obviously we have another wave. I think this is one of the first movies we get a giant wave. We get to see a giant wave, and I just remember there's a guy sitting on a fountain reading a newspaper, and then the wave comes and sweeps him away, and he's still in that same position in the wave.
Reading the newspaper.
Reading the newspaper.
I thought this was a serious movie.
Yeah, well, it was until then. But Yeah,
You also
so,
had
I mean,
Morgan Freeman as the president, right?
Yeah,
I was gonna
Morgan
say that.
Freeman. I think he was he the president or the vice president?
He was the
Oh,
president.
I think he was the president. He was the president. Yeah, and so that movie, but it just sticks with me, and visually, and it came out around the same time. I think it was the same summer as Armageddon.
Yeah.
So you kind of, it's kind of like earlier Dante's Peak came out at the same time as Volcano. So when Hollywood, I think they have two. There's someone gets the same script and they're like, okay, well then they move on to another production company and they're like, well, we want to do that, and so they compete and make two separate movies. Yeah.
And there was a Bug's Life and Ants within like the same couple of years. It's just they get an idea. They're like, we can tweak this and make it legally ours.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then Robert Duvall was amazing in it too. Like I said, you get the crew on the ship. And you have several stories that all merge together, and it's pretty awesome. And Elijah Wood, I love Robert Duvall. I love him. And Elijah Wood, you see his whole family, dealing with the same thing too. He's one of the kid that actually discovered it.
You know who I was thinking it was instead? I was thinking it was the guy from Mars Attacks. That's who I thought was in that movie, actually.
Oh, that guy, I don't remember that guy.
I don't know his name.
Jack Black.
Jack Nicholson?
Jack Black. Yeah, I thought it was Jack Black.
Oh, I thought it was Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, that kid, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
I don't know. What did you guys think of the Deep Impact?
It was deep, I gotta say. I haven't seen that movie probably in like 15 years, so it's hard to, just going off memory, I don't really remember a lot of it. But what would you say it is a more serious movie than Armageddon?
I don't think so. I think it's just
I'd say so.
It's pure. I think it's pure drama and not a lot of action.
With the exception of that slapstick guy getting washed away while we
yeah.
You might as well have been...
Me and my dad and I were watching it when it was on like TBS or something a little later on, after several years after it came out, and we saw that and we can't help but crack up every time it happens.
He might as well have been like sitting on a toilet, and then the guys were just lifting him off the seat.
Yeah,
and
it was
just, stayed there for a minute and then landed back down like nothing happened.
I didn't know this was a bidet.
Oh man, yeah. That movie didn't leave much of an impact on me.
Oh.
I didn't hate it though. Not like Armageddon. It was a lot less cheesy, and there was a lot less of that like cornball.
It was more grounded in reality, I believe.
Yeah. All right, boys. I think my number one is the Mac Daddy of all disaster movies. All right, do you guys? Can you guess what it is?
I have a feeling.
You guys have a guess?
Is it in the air?
Is it San Andreas?
It's not San Andreas. No.
It's an airplane.
Is that your guess? It's not Airplane. No. It's not a comedy. Is it what?
Well,
it's not 2012.
Is it War of the Worlds? Because I almost picked that, but
it is not.
Okay.
It's got a little bit. It's got a little bit of this and that in it, and it's got maybe the greatest presidential speech of all time. It is Independence Day, baby. This movie is freaking awesome, and this is Roland Emmerich when we thought he was good. Still, this was like, M. Night Shyamalan, Sixth Sense level Roland Emmerich. This movie is freaking awesome. This movie, when I first saw it, holy crap! I saw it at the drive-in, huge screen.
I did too.
Yeah,
the Simi Valley drive-in,
right? Yeah. Don't
double feature.
Where we live? Just kidding. Yeah, it was a double feature with Mars Attacks.
We drove there.
It took hours.
I saw that same double feature.
We were probably there. Oh, you were that kid who drove himself there.
No,
right?
I was that old man.
He was like 16 when I was like 6. No, but yeah, this movie is freaking amazing. Jeff Goldblum is great in it. Will Smith is great in it. Welcome to Earth.
Was that his first big role, by the way, Will Smith?
No, because he had Bad Boys by then.
Yeah, he had Bad Boys.
Yeah, Bad Boys.
What year was Bad Boys? 95?
The first Bad Boy?
90, yeah, around there, 94, 95.
Was this like 96?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, this movie had Bill Pullman, not Paxton, as the president, and the speech he gives is freaking amazing. It makes me want to fight aliens. The special effects are fantastic. I still think they hold up today. Especially with when the White House gets blown up by the mothership or whatever the.
Well, that was a practical effect, though.
Exactly.
The White House that was amazing.
Yeah, the White House is gone. It's that was for the movie.
And then when you have like the fireball that's going down the streets and stuff, and then you have that dog who almost doesn't make it into that like safety hatch in that tunnel. Like I was like, oh my god, save the freaking dog! Like it's that scene was so freaking tense, and the movie it's mind blowing with all the stuff that they did in it. It was great.
Yeah. You know the scene where they do have the fireball going into the streets. You know how they did that, right?
Yeah, they lit it on fire vertically.
Vertically, and it's amazing. It's just
so smart.
Awesome. This stuff,
so smart. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. Randy Quaid before he went insane. He might have gone insane during that movie because when he saves the day.
Hello, boys.
I'm back. I think that was him. Finally, his medication was wearing off. Essentially,
Yeah.
So he's like, "I'm back, boys." And everyone's like, "No, cut the film." But
Shitter's full.
yeah, but I think I think the cast is really good. I think Will Smith was as charismatic as ever.
Cast.
Jeff Goldblum's just super likable. One thing that doesn't make any sense is that they were able to hook up a Mac to an advanced alien ship to do diagnostics on it. Like, okay.
I think that was a Mac computer as an advertisement for a Mac computer.
For sure.
Look, we can communicate with aliens. Buy one. Spend $5,000.
That's how we got Mac technology, isn't it? Like, Apple came from aliens, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's why it's so expensive.
Exactly.
Came out of the brain of Steve Jobs.
I'm actually really surprised you guys didn't have this movie at all on your list.
You know what?
So freaking
it didn't occur to me for some reason, and I don't know why. I was thinking of ideas. I didn't think.
I mean, I think it totally works, but I think I thought of it, and I was considering it more of like an invasion movie, like War of the Worlds, and something because when I think of disasters, I think it's kind of like nature,
natural disaster, yeah.
Natural. Yeah.
Well, for me, why I have it on here is because there's just so much destruction in the movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
so much stuff is destroyed. Yeah. Like War of the Worlds is less so because you don't see a lot of that happening, whereas this is just like explosion porn, basically.
Well, War of the Worlds is a lot more like from Tom.
It's ground level.
From Tom Cruise's point of view.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom Cruise's point of view. So it's, I actually kind of appreciate that, where it's like you don't get to see you don't get to see like the omniscient perspective. You just get to see everything. Like when his son goes off and somehow doesn't die running over the hill when all the explosions were happening and stuff. So he thinks his son's dead. Then he magically shows up at the end of the movie. Exactly. But he doesn't know.
You don't necessarily know. Yeah, because they don't show you what happens, and that's kind of cool. But yeah, like I said, really surprised you guys didn't have it anywhere on your list. I get Jay's reasoning, but Bobby, you have no excuse.
Fair enough.
You're gonna get all the guff for this one.
Oh man, but Jay gets the guff. I guess
you've been trying to take my guff.
I guess this one got away from me.
Imagine the one person that comments on this is gonna be like, Independence Day sucks. I'm gonna just kill myself.
Sounds about right.
That's the end of NRDWave.
That's the end for Kevin. No. Jay and I will find a replacement. We'll get Pat. We'll do like one every like 8 weeks.
No, you just have to take all of my past recordings and splice sentences out of everything.
Totally
I said.
do that.
I'm pretty sure I've said every language or every word in the English language.
If we got Pat, between the three of us, between the two of you, you've just seen like 4 movies.
Okay, well, to be fair, like last week was Disney, and Kevin saw like 2 of the movies that I talked about.
Yeah, 2 of your movies because they were bad.
It's not true.
Don't tell
Moana is very good. Don't tell Christy. It's okay. She doesn't listen anyway, so.
That's true. Nobody does. All right. So yeah, I guess to wrap things up, in terms of all the movies that we've mentioned today, because obviously these are our personal favorites. They're not necessarily the best ones. Right. What would you guys say is the actual best movie in terms of like a movie in general, not just like the enjoyment you got out of it? Like, which movie do you think is the best quality?
Quality.
That's a tough one.
I think on the execution, and obviously, just the visuals. I think you're right. It's an Independence Day, but for me, as far as like, it's still hard to say. I still love Deep Impact so much, but Independence Day is amazing. I have to agree with you there.
What about you,
After rethinking it, Independence Day probably is the best all-around movie because it has the enjoyment factor. It's fun. It's also deep, or not necessarily deep at times, but it's also like it's got high stakes. You see like people, like friends of the characters dying, things like that. So I think Independence Day is probably the right answer, but I might, even though I had Cloverfield 2, I might go Cloverfield just because I think that is actually a very good movie. Just it's done very well. It introduces like new elements that Godzilla, as far as I know, that Godzilla didn't have, like the underlings coming off of the Cloverfield monster and like exploding people like after biting him.
Yeah, they're like parasites. It was cool. Like the parasites that were on the monster. Yeah.
They're like lice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, I'd have to go. I mean, I have to go Titanic. It's hard to argue with the with the accolades it has. But if that was for some reason not allowed because it isn't like a world-ending disaster movie, I got to go Independence Day also. I don't think that there's really anything bad about this movie. So I guess that means that I picked the best list, right?
I mean,
all right.
Not the best. Number one.
Whoever gets this one right, or whoever wins this next question wins the whole thing. Which movie, which had the best villain?
Deep Impact. It was a giant asteroid.
No, man. Alien
that
Mothership.
ties with Armageddon.
Well, who had the worst sequel?
Shit. That doesn't count.
What about? Do you remember from
Deep Impact 2? It was Deep Impact 2.
I don't know if you guys remember this.
Was there a Twister 2?
I don't know if you guys remember this, but on I think it's season 2 or 3 of Arrested Development, maybe he's pretending to be a movie executive at a studio, and there's a script for Armageddon 2, Armageddoner, or something like that.
All right, Jay, don't fact check this, but there is a Twister sequel called Atomic Twister. It's not actually a sequel. Damn it. But it's not good.
It's like a sci-fi knockoff, isn't it?
I would have bought that, Kevin.
Well, Twister has plenty of sequels. It has Sharknadoes.
I was going to say that. It has all 6 Sharknado movies. All right, guys. So I guess since my movie had the best villain, I win all this. So I got the best list.
Well, damn it. You got the best hero, too, probably.
Yeah. Welcome to Earth. That's how it goes.
Welcome to Earth.
All right.
Well done, Kevin. You won one for once.
I sure did. This is the second one I've won.
For once.
For once. The second one I've won for twice. All right. And with that, all the listeners out there, hope you guys stay safe and healthy. Hopefully this stupid pandemic ends soon. Let us know what you think of our list. Let us know if there's anything we missed. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And until next time, shred that gnar.
Thanks for riding the wave.
Wow, get pitted. And everyone, please leave comments if you disagree with anything. Please.
Or
comment.
You could agree and leave a comment also, but I don't know if that's a thing.
It's not as fun when people agree.